Hello, I'm Professor Good, and welcome to Biology 140 online lecture. So this is going to be a welcome video in which I'm going to briefly introduce the course and how to find assignments and different materials for this particular course. So you've logged in to Canvas, which is where all of the material is going to be found. Once you've logged into the Canvas site, here's the home page. And as you scroll down, you will see a little welcome images, information about me. I'm Professor Good. My email is there, my office address at East Peoria, my office hours, and how to properly send me an email. In other words, what we sometimes call email etiquette. Also, the course format. Please note, the lecture is online, but you will need to come to campus for lab. I may or may not be your lab instructor. So you may have a different instructor for the lab. So you may have two different Canvas sites, one for lecture and one for lab. Then we have four big buttons: the getting started, announcements, syllabus, grades, and modules. You can either click here or you can use the tabs on the left. And then the technical requirements required for this course, since you're enrolled in an online course. So the syllabus tab over on the left is going to provide just that. So this is kind of the running list of assignments, the weighted grades. So you have 75% for lecture and 25% of the course is lab. Announcements. So I highly recommend that you go into your Canvas settings and have it set up so that your announcements are emailed to you. I will have announcements weekly, and if there's any change in the course syllabus or any change in general, I will also send those. So to make sure that you're always on track and up to date with what's going on, I would check the announcements, both email and on this homepage frequently. They will typically be, which it's not there yet because the course hasn't started, right here at the top of the screen where it says recent announcements. As we scroll down on the left, I'm going to skip modules for the time being and go to grades. So you're going to want to know what your grade is in the course. And most assignments are going to be what we call auto-graded or automatically graded. However, there are a few assignments such as Nearpod that I have to grade. I promise to have those graded within 1 week and when you submit them to the Canvas site. And I will go into Nearpod in depth in another video. So here we are on the grades. And if something's been graded, so this is the number of points that are possible. And let's say you got a 2 out of 2, it would show 2 out of 2. Or let's say you got a 1 out of 2, it would show your grade here. And at the very bottom, it will also show your lecture assignment grade, your lab assignment grade, which then I'll combine those to get your total course grade. The Student Hub is exactly what it sounds like. This is a place, which let's see if it'll let me click on it, in which you can get tons of information about ICC. So your ID, your passwords, financial aid, the bookstore. So this is just a tab that links you in with information regarding ICC. So if you're struggling with things like technology, then you would go to this technology region. Please note that you have to use your ICC email address for everything in this course, and free as part of being a student at ICC, you have access to the Microsoft suite. So you have Excel, you have PowerPoint, you have Words, you have all of those things free with your account. So let's get out of the hub and go back to Canvas. The textbook is going to be automatically integrated into the Canvas site. So you would click on McGraw-Hill Connect. So you don't need to physically go to the bookstore and buy the textbook. Now for lab, you will need some materials, but for the lecture portion, you don't need anything physically from the bookstore. So you would click on McGraw-Hill, and it will redirect you to the McGraw-Hill site. The very first time you do this, you're going to click Begin, and it will have you register. So here I am in the McGraw-Hill page. Yours may look slightly different as a student, but just a couple things to note. You could rent the actual bound book if you would like, in addition to the e-text. So you have the e-text automatically, and you have to keep that because it's going to have integrated into it what is called Connect, which is where the assignments are, and something called Proctorio, which is the proctoring software. But if you're somebody that likes the physical copy, you could either rent the bound book or get a loose leaf. You can also do that through the ICC bookstore. So here is, right here, your e-text. So if you're wanting to read, let's say chapter 1, which I always recommend that you read the chapter, it's going to take you right to that e-text. And then you can go to the table of contents, chapter 1. And this is nice because it will read to you. You can change the font size. So if you're somebody that needs, a little bit bigger, you can look for animations that are embedded, which I don't think there's very many in chapter 1, but there are some. So this is kind of a nice location for that e-text. So again, you got to that by clicking on McGraw-Hill Connect. That is your textbook for this course. And you can explore the rest of the tabs, the BrainFuse, which is free online tutoring, at your leisure. Those are ones that we don't really use specifically for this course. So where you should enter the course is through modules. So a module and a lesson are the same thing. And this is where all the information is going to be located, resources, assignments. So I recommend that this is the way you get in versus using the to-do or the calendar view. I recommend that you just go right to the modules. So our first module is basically resources. So academic support, testing center, mental health. These are all free resources at ICC. So that's the first set. Then, not surprising, you're going to click on the Start Here, which is where all the good stuff is. So the syllabus, this is the physical copy of the syllabus. This is long, it's about 12 pages, and I'm going to explain that in a separate video. But this is important to read, maybe even print it out so that you know the due dates and the policies. The Nearpod notes are going to correspond with what is called Nearpod, which I'll get to in a moment. This is also something you can either purchase from the ICC bookstore or you can print it out. This is the notes for the course. This is really important. It's going to provide study guides, places to fill in notes, worksheets, etc. FAQs are exactly what it sounds like. It's just a snapshot of the main points of the syllabus. And then the digital red shelf is if you were wanting to pay a higher price for the eText, Connect, and Proctorio, you could opt out. Don't opt out because you're going to pay more money. All right, Nearpod, Proctorio, and Connect help. So if you get stuck, these are links to basically resources to get you back on track. Most of these are technology resources. Here are some Nearpod tips. Nearpod, again, is how I'm going to disseminate the information. It is free, and we're going to get to that in just a second. So let's look at your first set of assignments, which are the orientation assignments. So you're going to click on Orientation Nearpod, and then you'll click on where it says Load Orientation Nearpod. So again, Nearpod is how I'm going to provide the information. And all you got to do is log on. The main thing to remember is you must use your ICC logon, and you must be logged out of any other email, Gmail, etc. Otherwise, it'll say you don't have authorization, which is going to be a problem. So how to get into the Nearpod? You're going to choose sign in with Google. Again, you've got to be out of everything else. So 9 times out of 10, if you email me and say, I can't get in, it says I'm not authorized, or it says the LMS is not synced, log out of everything else, maybe even restart your computer, and then you're going to sign in with Google. You're going to use your ICC email and passwords. If you don't know that, you're going to need to get that ASAP. And then continue. And then there's another continue. And then it should automatically fill in your name. If not, you can fill it in. All right, so then you will get started using the Nearpod. So once you've done the orientation Nearpod, which is super important, it's 10 points and there's a lot of information there. I go through the syllabus, how the course works, how to complete lecture assignments. The next task is to click on this Proctorio video. It's only about 2 minutes. Watch the video and then take the Proctorio quiz. So it's getting you practice with low stakes. It's 2 points on using Proctorio before the first real quiz. Once all the orientation materials have been completed, then you're going to click on our first real lesson or module, which is Lesson 1, Chapter 1, and you're going to go through all of these materials. Good luck, and if you have questions, please let me know. Looking forward to a great semester.